If you are over 60 and you eat spinach, kale, or any other dark leafy green vegetable regularly, there is something you need to hear right now, because what most people in this age group are never told is that one of the most celebrated healthy foods on the planet can become genuinely dangerous depending on what medications you are taking. This is not about an obscure allergy or a rare reaction. This is about a specific, well-documented, and widely overlooked interaction that affects a significant number of seniors, and the reason most people don't know about it is simply that nobody sat them down and explained it clearly. Stay with us until the end of this video, because the information coming up in the middle could quite literally change the way you approach your next meal, and for some people watching this, it may be one of the most important things they hear all year. Let's start with the vegetable itself, because understanding what makes it both healthy and potentially problematic is the foundation for everything else we are going to cover. Spinach, kale, collard greens, Swiss chard, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, and similar dark leafy greens are genuinely among the most nutritious foods available. They are packed with vitamins, minerals, fiber, antioxidants, and plant compounds that support everything from bone health to cardiovascular function. For most people, eating these vegetables regularly is unambiguously beneficial, and we want to be clear about that from the very beginning. The issue we are discussing today is not that these vegetables are harmful in general. The issue is that they contain very high concentrations of a specific nutrient called vitamin K, and for seniors who are taking a particular category of medication, that high vitamin K content creates a serious and often unrecognized conflict that can have real consequences for health and safety. Vitamin K is an essential nutrient. Your body needs it for blood clotting and bone metabolism, among other functions. When you eat a food like spinach, which contains extremely high amounts of vitamin K, your body uses that vitamin as part of the complex process of forming blood clots when you are injured. This is entirely normal and healthy in someone who is not taking any medication that affects clotting. The problem arises with a medication called warfarin, which is also known by the brand name Coumadin, and is one of the most commonly prescribed medications for seniors in the world. Warfarin is a blood thinner, and it works specifically by blocking the action of vitamin K in the clotting process. Millions of seniors take warfarin for conditions including atrial fibrillation, deep vein thrombosis, pulmonary embolism, mechanical heart valves, and stroke prevention. For these people, warfarin is not a minor medication. It is often a critical one, and getting its dose right is a delicate and ongoing balancing act. Here is where the conflict becomes dangerous. Warfarin's effectiveness is directly and powerfully influenced by how much vitamin K a person consumes in their diet. When someone on warfarin eats a large amount of spinach or kale, the extra vitamin K essentially counteracts the blood-thinning effect of the medication, pushing their blood's clotting ability in a direction that can increase the risk of dangerous blood clots. When that same person then stops eating those greens, or eats them inconsistently, their vitamin K intake drops, and suddenly warfarin becomes more potent than intended, pushing their blood in the opposite direction and increasing the risk of dangerous bleeding. This swing between too much clotting and too much bleeding, driven by inconsistent leafy green consumption, is one of the most common and most serious management challenges for seniors on warfarin, and yet it is something that countless patients are never adequately warned about when their prescription is written. Doctors manage this interaction by measuring something called the INR, which stands for International Normalized Ratio, a test that measures how long it takes for blood to clot. Warfarin therapy aims to keep the INR within a specific therapeutic range, typically between 2 and 3 for most conditions, though this varies depending on the reason for the medication. When INR is within range, the medication is working as intended. When it rises above range, bleeding risk increases. When it falls below range, clot risk increases. What many seniors don't realize is that diet, specifically the amount of vitamin K consumed, is one of the most powerful influences on where their INR sits on any given day. A week of eating salads heavy with kale and spinach can cause INR to drop significantly. Stopping those salads abruptly can cause ANR to spike. And the frightening reality is that both of these shifts can happen without any obvious warning symptoms, meaning a senior could be outside their therapeutic range and at significantly elevated risk without feeling any different than usual. The range of foods that contain meaningful amounts of vitamin K is broader than most people realize, and this is part of why the interaction is so easy to accidentally trigger. Spinach and kale are the most well-known high vitamin K foods, but the list also includes collard greens, Swiss chard, beet greens, turnip greens, mustard greens, Brussels sprouts, broccoli, cabbage, lettuce, particularly darker varieties, asparagus, green onions, parsley, cilantro, and even some vegetable oils including soybean oil and canola oil. Someone who is cooking with these oils daily, adding parsley as a garnish, eating a salad with romaine lettuce, and having a side of broccoli with dinner may be consuming significant vitamin K at multiple points throughout the day without ever touching spinach or kale directly. For a senior on warfarin, this cumulative vitamin K exposure can be enough to meaningfully shift their INR, and the inconsistency of when and how much of these foods they eat is precisely what creates the problem. It is important to understand that the solution here is not simply to stop eating all leafy greens. That approach, while it would eliminate the vitamin K interaction, would also deprive the body of genuinely important nutrients and health benefits. The actual medical recommendation for seniors on warfarin is something more nuanced and more manageable, which is consistency. Rather than eliminating vitamin K-containing foods, the goal is to maintain a consistent intake of them from week to week, so that the warfarin dose can be calibrated to work correctly at that consistent dietary level. A senior who eats 2 cups of spinach every day can be managed effectively on warfarin as long as they continue eating approximately that amount consistently. The problem arises when intake swings dramatically, eating large amounts of leafy greens for 2 weeks and then almost none for another 2 weeks, creating unpredictable changes in INR that are difficult to manage and potentially dangerous. The reason so many seniors find themselves in this situation is a combination of factors that are all understandable but together create a genuinely concerning gap in awareness. First, the connection between diet and blood thinner effectiveness is not always explained thoroughly when a warfarin prescription is first written, particularly in busy clinical settings where there is limited time for detailed patient education. Second, many seniors begin eating more leafy greens at some point after starting warfarin, often because they have heard how healthy these foods are and want to improve their diet, without realizing that this positive dietary change is creating a conflict with their existing medication. Third, many seniors adjust their diet seasonally or based on food availability, eating more salads and greens in summer and reverting to different foods in winter, creating exactly the kind of inconsistency that challenges warfarin management. And fourth, some seniors are never told clearly enough that warfarin is a medication where diet and lifestyle factors have a direct and powerful influence on how well it works, rather than a medication where the dose simply stays stable once established. Beyond the vitamin K and warfarin interaction, which is the most significant concern, there are a few other reasons why certain seniors may need to be more mindful about specific vegetables. Seniors with kidney disease, for example, need to be aware of high potassium vegetables, since the kidneys in advanced kidney disease may struggle to excrete potassium efficiently, and excessive potassium from dietary sources can accumulate to dangerous levels in the blood. Vegetables like potatoes, tomatoes, avocados, and leafy greens contain meaningful amounts of potassium, and seniors with kidney disease are often advised to monitor and limit their intake carefully. This is another example of a nutritional recommendation that reverses in the context of a specific health condition, where something universally considered healthy becomes something that requires careful management for a particular group. Seniors managing thyroid conditions may also need to be aware of a category of compounds called goitrogens, which are found in cruciferous vegetables including kale, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, and cabbage. Goitrogens can interfere with thyroid hormone production when consumed in very large amounts, and while the evidence on this interaction is not as clear-cut as the vitamin K and warfarin connection, Some thyroid specialists advise patients with hypothyroidism to moderate their intake of raw cruciferous vegetables in particular, since cooking significantly reduces goitrogenic activity. Let's also spend a moment on the broader principle that this entire conversation illustrates, because it extends far beyond just leafy greens and blood thinners. The principle is that nutritional advice does not exist in a vacuum separate from medical context. Foods that are genuinely healthy for most people can require specific consideration for people with certain health conditions or on certain medications. This is not a reason to be afraid of food, but it is a reason to make sure that your healthcare providers, including your doctor and your pharmacist, have a complete picture of what you eat regularly alongside your complete medication list. Many drug-nutrient interactions are well documented and well known to pharmacists in particular, who are often an underused resource for exactly this kind of practical guidance. Let's now talk practically about what seniors on warfarin should actually do with the information in this video. The first and most important step is to not make any sudden changes to the amount of leafy greens you eat. If you have been eating a significant amount of spinach or kale while on warfarin and your INR has been stable, a sudden elimination of these foods could push your INR dangerously high. The second step is to speak with your doctor or anticoagulation clinic about your current dietary habits in detail, specifically how much vitamin K containing food you eat and how consistently. This conversation allows your medical team to calibrate your warfarin dose appropriately for your actual diet rather than a theoretical one. The third step is to aim for consistency in your vitamin K intake from week to week rather than dramatic variation, which gives your warfarin management the stable dietary foundation it needs to work effectively. Let's also talk about something that many seniors on warfarin don't realize, which is that the interaction doesn't only come from food. Certain supplements, herbal products, and vitamins also contain significant amounts of vitamin K or compounds that influence vitamin K activity in the body. Multivitamins often contain vitamin K, sometimes in amounts large enough to affect INR if the product is started or stopped without informing the prescribing doctor. Green tea, particularly in large amounts or as a concentrated supplement, has been associated with vitamin K activity changes. Certain herbal supplements including ginkgo biloba, fish oil in high doses, garlic supplements, and ginger in concentrated supplement form can also affect blood clotting in ways that interact with warfarin. This is why doctors and pharmacists emphasize that seniors on warfarin need to disclose every supplement, vitamin, and herbal product they use, not just their prescription medications, because the distinction between food, supplement, and medication becomes much less meaningful when they are all influencing the same biological process. Another dimension worth understanding is that newer blood thinners have largely replaced warfarin for many conditions, and these newer medications, often called direct oral anticoagulants or DOACs, work through a different mechanism that does not involve vitamin K. If you or someone you know is on one of these newer blood thinners rather than warfarin, the specific leafy green interaction we have discussed does not apply in the same way. However, these newer medications have their own dietary and supplement considerations that are worth discussing with a pharmacist, and the broader principle of being aware of how food and medications can interact remains just as relevant regardless of which specific anticoagulant is being used. It is also worth taking a moment to talk about the monitoring system that exists for warfarin, because understanding it helps explain both why this interaction matters and how it can be managed safely. INR monitoring, which involves a simple blood test that measures clotting time, is typically done regularly for seniors on warfarin, initially quite frequently when the dose is being established, and then at intervals that depend on how stable the INR has been. Seniors who maintain very consistent diets and consistent INR values may be monitored less frequently, while those with more variable INR may need more frequent testing. Some seniors now have access to home INR monitoring devices, which allow them to test their own clotting levels between clinical appointments, giving both the patient and the medical team a more continuous picture of how well the medication is working. The emotional dimension of this topic is also worth acknowledging, because many seniors who learn about this interaction for the first time feel a mix of frustration and concern. They have been told for years that leafy green vegetables are among the healthiest foods they can eat. They may have been deliberately increasing their salad and vegetable intake to improve their health, and now they are learning that this positive dietary effort has been creating a complicated situation with their medication that nobody clearly explained. This frustration is completely understandable. The response to it, however, should not be to abandon healthy eating, but rather to have a more complete and honest conversation with the medical team that is managing both the medication and the overall health picture. These two goals, eating well and managing warfarin effectively, are not incompatible. They simply require a level of coordination and communication between patient, doctor, and pharmacist that is not always happening as thoroughly as it should. For seniors not on warfarin, the message about leafy greens is genuinely and simply positive. These vegetables are among the most beneficial foods available for older adults, supporting bone health through calcium, vitamin K, and magnesium, supporting cardiovascular health through folate, potassium, and antioxidants, supporting cognitive health through B vitamins and anti-inflammatory compounds, and reducing the risk of numerous chronic diseases through their fiber and phytonutrient content. If you are not on a blood thinner, you should not be reducing your leafy green intake based on this video. The information here is specifically and only relevant to seniors who are taking warfarin or another vitamin K-dependent anticoagulant medication. Before we close, it is important to say clearly that this video is for general educational awareness only. Nothing here constitutes medical advice, and nothing here should prompt anyone to stop or change their medication or to make dramatic dietary changes without first speaking with their doctor or pharmacist. Drug-nutrient interactions are real and important, but they are also highly individual, and the right guidance for your specific situation depends on your complete health picture and medication regimen in a way that only your healthcare team can fully assess. If this video gave you information that you or someone you know on a blood thinner genuinely needed to hear, please share it with them, because this is the kind of practical, specific health information that most seniors simply never receive clearly and directly. If you found this video helpful, please like it and subscribe to Dr. William Hart Health for more videos like this every day.